Hey there. So, one of the questions that we've had in our members group is about newsletter growth and specifically whether the promotions, like things like book sweeps and things like that, are a good way to grow your list and whether you should just count on your list to grow organically, things like that. So, today's topic is going to be the do's and don'ts of growing your email list. So, I want to start with a couple real blanket don'ts. One don't is to go against all of the anti-spam laws out there. So real quick, you must have permission to add people to your email list. So if somebody writes you an email and says, "Hey, I loved your book," you are not allowed to just grab their or their email address and add it. Certainly don't do things like take your church directory and add people's emails to it. Never add someone to your list without their absolute permission. And so that's kind of the anti-spam type of rules that you need to do. Another thing, definitely do not rely on like going into your Gmail and just copying people into emails. That way you need to go through something like MailerLite, ConvertKit. I use ConvertKit. The MailerLite has a free version, so a lot of authors start on MailerLite. There are a couple different ones you can go to. I think my two blanket recommendations would be MailerLite if you want something free, ConvertKit if you want something with a few more bells and whistles. But there are others that you could also look into. So those are the most obvious don'ts. And then here's a couple other things to consider when you're running things like a book sweeps promotion. So if you're not familiar, this is where you can give people a free book and in exchange you get their email address. These are, they're done in a way, I know at least book sweeps are done in a way where they make sure to account for these anti-spam laws and privacy and things like that. But they're not always the best way to grow your list. So I'm not going to include these in the don't use because there's absolutely a place for them. But there are a few things that you need to keep in mind. So let's say a typical book sweeps would be like, here are 15 authors. And if you're the reader, you give your email address to book sweeps. You get free books from these 15 authors, but then you also get added to their email list. And Book Sweeps is going to give you those emails usually like all at once. And so if you're that reader, you're going to be getting 15 emails with the link for a free book, and then you're going to be getting emails from that author. And it's really easy for that reader to get annoyed. And it's also very easy for your books and your emails to just kind of get lost. When you're just starting out and you don't have any readers, you don't have any list, I think that things like the book sweeps promos are a good way to start. But you also, if you're going to join them, here are a few things you want to just keep in mind. You want to make sure that you're matched with other authors in a very, very, very similar genre, even to the subgenre. So, for example, I don't join the promotions that are just inspirational reads because those could be books about meditation all the way to books about Christian suspense, which is what I write. And that's just too broad of a thing for me. So I also typically don't join Christian fiction list builders. It would have to be something like Christian mystery and suspense books or things like that. The closest you can get to your specific subgenre, the better. So that would be another thing that I would kind of include in the don'ts is don't go outside of your genre and do try to get as genre specific as you can, even down to the subgenre if possible. Another thing that I would add in the don't is don't assume that just because you're giving links to a free book that the people who subscribe are going to read that book. And so if you think about it, it's very easy to find authors giving away free books for people who join their newsletter. And it's very common for people to sign up and never even click or download that book. So, what you want to do is walk your readers through kind of a welcome sequence. These are just sort of automatic emails that not only talk about you and your books, but kind of give them a reason to want to read that free book. And so, email one is where you would just send them the link to download the free book. BookFunnel makes this really, really easy so that you don't have to worry about like attachments and crazy things like that. So, a typical welcome sequence would look like day one, as soon as they sign up, they get a link to your free book. And then maybe the next day, you tell them hey, here's the free book you got. Here's the link. Here's BookFunnel's support email if you have any trouble downloading it. Here's what other readers like you are saying about this book. And so you're kind of not only saying, hey, download my book, but here's why you're going to want to read this. And then maybe you send them another email like 2 or 3 days after that, where you say something like, hey, if you liked this book, here are a few other my books that are similar. And if you haven't read this book yet, here's that download link one more time. So you just kind of wants to remind them, which is, I guess, another don't to keep in mind with your newsletter. Don't assume that they're going to open every single email and read every single email. You want to make it real easy for your readers. One thing that I do now when I launch a book, I email my list multiple times about that book, because not everybody reads every single email. And even those who do, they might not be in a position to buy the book right then. And so, over the course of a week or two, I might send out 4 emails to them about it, which brings me to another don't. And that is, don't worry when people unsubscribe. Here's a better way to put it. Don't hesitate emailing your list because you're worried that people are going to unsubscribe. Basically, my outlook on it is when I get a new person on my list, I want to email them quite a bit so that they get used to hearing from me. And I like it when they unsubscribe if they don't want to hear from me. So I never ask myself, I never worry, like, are they going to get sick of hearing from me? I go into it with the idea that anybody who's on my list wants to hear from me a lot. And basically that means that my welcome sequence has multiple emails in a week. I have no problem emailing people multiple times a week. Now, I don't necessarily do that every week, but I never worry about over emailing my list because I go into it with this idea that my readers who are on this list absolutely want to hear from me, because if they don't want to hear from me, I want them to unsubscribe. That's going to lead me to another don't ask them to unsubscribe. Some people like doing this, but I can't think of a way to do it that doesn't sound apologetic. So what I mean is, you don't want the tone of your emails to ever come across as, guys, I'm really sorry to be bothering you again. I know you're really busy, but I wanted to tell you this. So my tone is always, I'm going to just assume that since you're still on my list, that you love hearing from me. And that means that I can talk to you in a way that's encouraging and enthusiastic. So that's why I never ask people to unsubscribe. I just kind of, I make the unsubscribe button always right there. And I just assume that if they don't want to hear from me that much, they can unsubscribe. So those are some of the just do's and don'ts that popped into my head about kind of growing your newsletter list. Another one would be to find ways to encourage people onto your list who are already your readers. So instead of just relying on the promotions like book sweeps and things like that, this would be including links in your books. And those readers are going to tend to be better subscribers for you because they've already read one of your books and they liked it enough that they want to stay in touch with you. So another do would be, do include links to sign up to your newsletter in the back of your books, on your social media accounts and things like that, so people can find it really, really easily. And also make it very clear, like on your website, have it really, really clear where they can sign up and what they'll get. So another do would be, do offer them something. Usually this is going to be a free book. Sometimes people have multiple free books that you get just for signing up, and that's going to help them feel incentivized to be on your list. And then once you get them on your list, I really do recommend that you nurture them through these kind of welcome sequences, these automatic sequences where you just kind of talk through your books. So my backlist email sequence and my automated sequence is actually like a whole year long. So let me walk you through what happens when you join my list, just to give you an example of how it's set up. So you get 3 free books when you join my list. The first couple emails are going to be like what I said before. Here's the free link to your book. Here's why people like these free books. Here's what other readers like you are saying about them. Here's the email to the support to help you download your free books from BookFunnel if you need help, things like that. Then my initial welcome sequence is about 2 weeks long, where multiple times a week they're hearing from me. And I do this for a few reasons. One is to weed out the people who don't want to hear from me that often. And that's okay. So basically, I want to email them a lot right away so they get used to hearing from me, and they're going to unsubscribe if they don't want to hear from me. And that makes it so that I can go into all of my future emails with that excited tone, like I said, knowing that, hey, if you're reading this, it's because you're really enthusiastic and want to be here. So I never have to feel apologetic. And then that welcome sequence, it has some of them, it's um, sending them to my books for sale. And some of them, it's for things like, hey, follow me on Amazon, follow me on BookBub. Here's a link to my Facebook group. I put those early on in my welcome sequence so that if people don't want to be in my newsletter list, they still might follow me on Amazon or BookBub or things like that. And then after that, basically what happens is they go into my backlist sequence, which for, about twice a month on a Saturday, it emails them about one of the books in my backlist. So the majority of these emails are books, book sale emails. The purpose of them is to sell one of my books. And this basically means that once you've been on my list, it can take you about a full year to go through all of these, but you'll have heard about basically every single one of my series, every single one of my books, and you'll have the chance to have bought them. And then what happens is once you finish that, I just recycle it and you get that same sequence of emails later on because a whole year is passed or sometimes even longer. And so it feels okay to me to double up. So those are kinds of the do's and don'ts of acquiring newsletter subscribers and how to nurture them. If you're interested, let me know. We can also do some trainings and videos and recordings about how to, like the do's and don'ts of writing emails. That's not what we went into today, but that's absolutely a future thing that we can talk about in the members group if you're interested. So thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.